present clinical medicine here. Probably it's the first paper for today from clinicist, GP, dietologist, and also I represent the only Russian medical university that is named after our great scientist Mechnikov. Today it was already said, and probably it's good that my paper is the last one. It was said already that for today the majority of the diseases that we know are nutrition related. It's atherosclerosis, it's ischemic heart disease, hypertension, stroke, obesity, diabetes, osteoporosis, many kinds of cancer, etc. I will also give you some data from the United States of America. We've already seen some of them, that it's data of the year 2000. Now it's 100 million Americans who have cardiovascular diseases and 17 million diabetes, which means that there are 2 million deaths per year. And also it's a huge loss, billion dollars loss in the US for treatment of these nutrition-related diseases, and it's about $1 billion. We are now in Russia, and here the situation is probably not much better, probably not better at all. Cardiovascular diseases are 56 and 9%, and also in Russia, you can see here the data on different diseases, and Russia also has a lot of cardiovascular diseases and deaths. In the United States, it's 235, and we have 1,073, and we are 4 times more of such deaths in America. And with northern Italy, it's even more drastic. With women, also the statistics is very sad. So that's some data that I wanted to show you. The main factors, risk factors, are hypertension. You can see at this slide, we have inadequate consumption of fruit and vegetables, obesity, alcoholism. It's also more than this 35% of hypertension, though they are also risk factors. And what we had today, it's this, again, we've seen this, it's ancient diet that humankind ate for at least 500 years before Christ, and also there were agriculture was invented, and meat was not. We didn't eat as much meat, and then we have a very different picture when we don't consume so much fruit and vegetables, but we eat a lot of meat and sausages and bread, potato, pasta, etc. What happens here? 100 years ago, was very rare to have a heart attack. And you remember that there were mills where they made bread, but then they improved methods of processing cereals, but actually we lost a lot of vitamins and microelements of copper, of chrome, of vitamins B, of B group, etc. So we actually refined the product, but we lost a lot of microelements and vitamins. Of course, it changed drastically how we eat. Now, again, when we look at the fruit that we eat now apples do not contain as much ferrum as they used to have, as much calcium, magnesium, etc. Cabbage doesn't contain as much calcium as it used to have. So actually, fruit and vegetables that we buy in our shops, it's imitation of apple or cabbage, etc. If we speak about bacteria that we consume with the products, it also was 100 times less, became 100 times less. So if 100 years ago we had 75% of the energy by consumption of starch, today it's 30%, but we consume a lot more sugar, fat, and that's why we have so sad consequences in our today's diet. On the other hand, pharmacotherapy also changed a lot, because in the middle of 20th century we acquired pharmaceutical chemical treatments which came to medicine and to the field where I work, to practical medicine. And now medicine, it's a pharmaceutical market where pharmaceuticals, big companies dominate. They play their game, they advertise. And we've already said that it's more than 10 years that it takes to develop new treatment. And it costs like $10 billion, for example. And half of it is marketing, it's advertising. So it's a huge market. The standard that we have in Russian Federation for today for cardiovascular disease, the patients have 1 to 10 different medicines, but we still have this problem, and it's not radically solved. We have a lot of side effects, and actually, I'm citing recent research of the year 2013. From 4 to 29% of the patients, they have these adverse reactions. It's the data that are well known. Also, there are allergic reactions. There is damage to all organs, suicides, aggression. Sometimes it's psychological damage as well. Also, we can see that lifestyle has changed drastically, and we spend $5,000, for example, to save a patient. But if it's statins, it's already $32,000. There are very expensive treatment, and again, it's market, it's business. As for hypertension, there are many medicines, but again, if we reduce body mass, we can actually decrease our blood pressure just by a right diet, limitation of salt, exercise. Also, if we do not drink so much, we again can have 40, 50 degrees less of blood pressure, and it won't be necessary to take so much medicines. But also in our contemporary medicine, we also have reevaluation and different treatment, because in the 20th century, we of course were dominated by pharmaceutical company, pharmacotherapy. But now we can see that traditional pharmacotherapy is replaced by more natural nutritional metabolic therapy with the help of pharmaconutrients. This new medicine is between pharmacotherapy and nutrition. And if pharmacotherapy is antibiotics, hormones, beta blockers, then pharmaconutrients are amino acids, fats, probiotics. And now we can watch this evolution, this change in the therapy. It was predicted by our great scholars who actually suggested first this type of treatment. Linus Pauling, who first started speaking about automolecular medicine, and by Pokrovsky, who created pharmacology of food. He said that food is a complex of many different elements, and each has its own biological activity. He used to be a director of Institute of Nutrition of our country. Those nutritions are the most important for cardiovascular system. It's again magnesium, taurine, etc. As for evidence medicine, we have proved possible, probable factors that can decrease risk for our cardiovascular system. For example, obviously, fish is good, and again, there are obviously elements that increase risk, like sugars, etc. And now we use a new vitamin complex of vitamin of B group that can influence homocysteine of blood, which improve prognosis. We also use phytonutrients, which are more natural for our body: polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids, etc. Alpha and beta carotene, phytosterines, antioxidants, etc. We also know that some bacteria of our guts are capable of effective correct our blood pressure. For example, Lactobacillus acidophilus is bacteria that is capable of this. There are bifidobacteria and other elements. It's actually nothing other but renaissance of some discoveries of Ilya Mechnikov, who got Nobel Prize in 1908, who said that microflora is very influential and can influence our life and its quality. Today we know some mechanisms and macrobiotes for our blood pressure, and we know elements that decrease blood pressure, that regulate water balance in guts, and also we get regulation by calcium of our, again, cardiovascular system. If we speak about arginine, which is one of the most important acids, and it's used in Japan instead of nitroglycerin, and actually it's regarded as urgent help with heart problems. In 1998, Nobel Prize went to people who invented this. This is this formula that another thing, carnitine. It's very nice to know that all the world knows that Russian scholars Gulevich and Krimberg invented it in 1905, carnitine. Our body doesn't synthesize enough carnitine, so we have to get it with the food, and it's 50-70 milligrams per day. It's mostly meat, by the way, but when we don't have enough carnitine, then we have we have a lot of problem, anemia, and it's also can be the cause for secondary mitochondrial deficient. And we use this in medicine because we have evidence, data, that when we have carnitine during months, then we have 2 times less of side effects after myocarditis infarction. Also, Also, it helps for inflammation and with other heart problem. There is an article by Hellingen and Anker about L-carnitine that helps keeping muscle mass, and also it slows development of Alzheimer's disease. And I saw a very good book by Terry Grossman. He presented it today, and he also mentions all this quality of acetyl L-carnitine, but I wanted to say it here. Recently, in the last 2 years, we have data that a microbiota of human can form trimethylamine, TMA, from several elements of food, which is connected with high risk of atherosclerosis and other diseases. Again, look at this trimethylamine and carnitine. Hypothetically, of course, we could imagine that carnitine and choline might, by means of microflora, it was done in the experiment, not with patients, that this TMAO would form, but we do not agree with this hypothesis, because carnitine doesn't come to thick to this part of the guts, because we in this work in experiment they cited Ancetobacter baumannii, but it's serious disease. We don't meet it in ordinary patients. Also, they claim a high concentration TMA in several kinds of fish, but fish is not connected to atherosclerosis. So we think that carnitine is not capable of forming this element. Also, it was already mentioned that among the reasons of cancer, there are many factors, and wrong harmful food is 35% factor of cancer. And we know exactly that fruit and vegetables decrease risk of cancer, but fried meat increases it. If we look at colorectal cancer, we know that again, fried meat is obviously a risk factor, and a fruit and vegetable decrease factor. Red meat, which was cooked with high temperature, is a factor which helps to develop cancer. There are certain elements that are now used in producing food which are oncogenic, and they damage DNA, which was damaged by, which was mentioned by Alexey Moskalev today. If you look at meta-analysis of 40 works that were published in 1973-2001, that certain elements that help to decrease risk of different types of cancer. We again see the same picture. It was already mentioned today about this EPIC research that showed how colorectal cancer can be, the risk can be decreased by certain food. Okay, dietary fiber is a great factor in this. There were published data in 2007-2009 where it was shown that about 40% of cancer could have been prevented if we changed diet and physical activity. Osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, it's fourth place after vascular diseases and diabetes and cancer. And again, if we see that 30-40 years, it's 4-5% which have this disease. In 40-50 years, it's much higher. Osteoporosis are also very common, and there are many products that influence it. Menopause, of course, influences it a lot, as well as smoking. I'll remind you that bone is material that is formed mostly by collagen and non-organic crystals. And collagen of the first type, and also there is collagen of the second type and proteoglycans. And if collagen is in charge of robustness, then the nutrition therapy for osteoarthrosis include collagen therapy, glucosamine, and other elements, and also omega-3 polysaturated acids, fatty acids. We need to use all this in complex, because if we increase only calcium without vitamin D, then osteoporosis will be only increased, and bones will be broken, because it should be very well balanced, because when we have too much protein, again bones will be less robust. And today we again remember automolecular medicine by Linus Pauling, who said that there are two types of medicines. First, those that we do not have normally in our food, and second type, which we have in our body and in everyday food. And he says, if your body aches, you think that you don't have enough aspirin in your body, or you don't have enough beta blockaders. What organ of your body can produce those things? Why we should use chemicals that are not produced by our body?
Of course, that should change, and now we use various medicinal products. For example, with osteochondrosis, we have collagen, B6, vitamin C, and so on. But with osteoporosis and fractures, there should be manganese, calcium, and other chemicals balanced. There are special medicinal products, and of course today we have to rethink relation towards diet. We need a nutritionist, and this is something that we have pointed out 18 years ago in our dissertation. This is a doctor who would know metabolomics and genomics and prevention of diseases. This is a new approach. This is a new view of things. This is nutritional metabolic therapy, and we hope that such clinician will sooner or later appear armed with such knowledge that we've been discussed today. So then the words of Hippocrates, let food be your medicine, will become a reality. Thank you very much.